Good morning. Welcome back to the Vantage Point. We're so glad to have you all here with us today. I believe we have a conversation for you that is going to definitely touch your heart and invoke you to want to bring about some change. I want to introduce first our panel that we have here with us today. Have Crystal Dunn, the prophetess herself. You know, they give me all these titles during the introduction. I'm giving titles today. Her Eminence, Jennifer Rogers. And we're gonna come back to my special guest here. And then we have Dr., which is the only one with the real title. Dr. Jessica Mosley here today. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna hit a hot topic, I think. But I want to first invite you, go to our website, www.vantagepointtv.com, and find out about our Mother's Day promo. We are doing a contest. You can submit a picture with your child or a picture of your mom or a mother figure in your life. Add a 100-word caption and just send it to us. Also like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. And we're gonna hand out some awesome prizes. So it's a really simple contest to enter. Go to VantagePointTV.com for more information. All right, moving forward from that. This is my special guest. Hi, please welcome to the Vantage Point, Melissa Jude.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
I have known her since high school. You know, I can't say we talked a whole lot in high school, but I've always known her as one of the people you're like, oh, hi. You know, pretty cool. No shade, nothing there. But, you know, we kind of reconnected. Her name came about last summer, and we'll get to what happened to last year. We'll get to what happened because of the passing of her son, Chandler. And so out of that, part of the reason I invited Melissa here, and we're going to talk about this, is because I was charged to do a segment with people who just build off of whatever life hands them. I love people who take that and they build from it. And they don't just stop there. It's not just, they're determined. Kind of the motto I have for my life too is that if it happens to me, I'm going to help somebody else with it. Mm-hmm. And she has embodied that. I have watched it over the last year or so. And so I'm just really glad that she accepted the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And because this is going to be personal. And so first of all, will you tell us, you're the mom of two.
I am.
Tell us about your kids.
Well, I have a 12-year-old son named Kai. And then I also, my older son, my firstborn, Chandler Bussey, that was killed June 12th of last year in Arsenal Park. He was shot in the head multiple times with a friend. You know, and with that, you know, I just decided that I'm not going to go through this. His tragedy, we're going to turn it into some triumph to help other people. So those are my babies. And my oldest is the reason, of course, that I'm here and that I'm fighting and out in the community and trying to help other mothers that are in this situation.
Yeah, and we do know there's a lot of moms you're going to help today because there's a lot of loss.
Absolutely.
Indiana, the murder rate has been insane.
Yes.
And then just all over our country, there's unrest. But first of all, I want you to just tell us about Chandler. Like when you think about it, will you just tell us about Chandler?
Well, Chandler, he was 20. He was killed just a few weeks prior to him turning 21. We had a trip planned to go to Vegas. And Chandler was a lot like me, very outspoken, vocal, always in the community, doing silly stuff to always make people laugh. You could count on him to be there in your worst time to help you through it. He did play basketball and ran track at Lawrence Central. He did go off to a Christian school on a track scholarship, where he did experience some racism there, and that caused him to leave the school. But he was honestly the life of the party. Always pranking me, joking me, and that's one thing that I miss the most about our relationship. You know, but he was definitely out and about where everybody knew him.
And just as a reference point, her children are biracial, so she's referencing the racism Chandler experienced. But it sounds like he was a lot of fun.
Yes, he was. And he was so much fun that the week before he was killed, it was my 12-year-old son's birthday. And we were at Topgolf, and he was telling me, because that's when all the riots and stuff were happening with George Floyd. And he was like, hey, Mom, I went cliff diving. And I'm like, you give me a panic attack. And I was like, where did you do this at? And it was like this little small white town. And he told me this park and where they do this at. And he showed me the video of him jumping off this cliff. And I'm like, kid, you live to give me panic attacks. Yeah. And he goes, well, that's okay. Just know that I'm going to do this tomorrow again on June 6th. And I said, please. You know, it's a small white town. I do worry about you and your friends going to small towns, especially right now. And he goes, no, I'm taking like 5,000 black people with me. And I said, cool. He goes, they can't lock us all up. And so I said, well, y'all just need to please be careful. And he was like, you know, no, what we're going to do is, you know, white people, we're going to go real early, and white people, they're going to learn to interact and hang out with us and realize we're not all bad. So if they want to come in and play at the park, they got to come play with us. And so he goes, Mama, you got to stop worrying about me. I'm trying to change the world. And so with that, you know, when I lost him, I was like, this conversation did not happen by accident. That was the last, like, serious conversation that we had about making a change to the world. And I have taken that and ran with it, because I'm just like, this is honestly an assignment that God, I feel like, has laid on my lap to carry out. I mean, to help whoever I can, whether it's our youth, which is why I started my organization, or even help mothers that are going through this and going through the whole entire process with the system. You know, after you're told your child has passed away, and then you have to just kind of figure it out, the system, you know, the coroner's office, who do you contact? You know, I was brought into a world that I knew nothing about, you know, and trying to figure that out while you're numb, it's hard. And that is why I really extend myself to be there for other mothers or parents or even people that have lost loved ones to gun violence, because I do know exactly how they feel.
Can you tell us about what them coming to the door? What did they call you? Did they come to the? What do they do?
I actually learned that my son was killed through a text message.
Oh.
It had made it to social media, and a kid that was one of his friends, I didn't know his number, but since his phone is connected to mine, it came through and, you know, said possibly this kid. And he was like, I'm so sorry that he was shot and killed. I had just gotten off a long day of work, a 12-hour shift. And I'm like, shot and killed, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, these young people, like, they're so extreme, right? And so I called him, and he was like, yeah, he was just shot and killed at a park. So I hadn't heard from the police department. I was on the highway speeding to get to the hospital, you know, and then when I pull up, there's like 100 young people hanging out, and I'm still thinking like, oh, you know, the young people are exaggerating, right, on social media, like, not my son, right? And then when I pulled up and I see all these young people, and with it being COVID, my mother rode with me and my son. It was only me able to go in, and there they intercepted me. They had already, I wasn't even able to see my son. They had already removed his body to the coroner's office. And once they told me, you know, a big part of me, like, died with him. It's numbing. And they just said, the folks there at the hospital just said, well, You should probably be hearing from the coroner's office, and your detective will be getting in touch with you sometime. Okay. There was an IMPD chaplain that did show up at the hospital just to tell me, he's sorry for my loss. I mean, what else can you say, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, then I had to count on, well, who's the detective? I don't know this person. When are they going to call me? And waiting on that phone call to hear from someone. He didn't even come to my home until the next afternoon. And there had been 5 other people murdered the same night, though. There was 6 homicides that night. And so, they don't give you any instruction. Who at the coroner's office do you talk to? Do you ID your kid? How do you go through this? I had to figure it out, and I had to rely on, friends to kind of help me, because it's numbing to find this out, and then you're just left on your own to kind of figure out, now what do you do now to put your baby to rest?
Wow. So you didn't hear from the police or any officials?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not until the next afternoon. Didn't even know who my son's detective was. Had no idea. And at first, I thought it was just my story. You call, you wait for a call back. Until I met about 60 other families that are experiencing the same exact thing that I've been through. And that's what let me know it's not that they don't care about my son or they don't care, about me. It's not that. This is a broken process. Yeah. This system is broken. So now what can we do to fix it? Because that's only 60. Just last year there was 245 homicides, and we're at well into the 50s already this year. So it's a broken process, and I've been trying to work with IMPD to help explain the process. Why aren't you guys reaching out? You need to make this better for these families, because their family member being killed and then left to just be in limbo, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Right. I want to say something really quick. The IMPD chief, Taylor, was just at my school about a month ago. He did it was a First Fridays, and we asked this exact question. And when we come back, she's going to take us to commercial break. When we come back, I want to answer that question for what he gave me, because we were on the news.
Good.
Because I think but I want to actually put you in touch with him personally, because he'd be up at the school. So I think this is a great conversation we're having today.
Okay.
Well, as she stated, we are going to definitely continue this conversation, and hopefully we're starting conversations or expanding conversations. And we will continue this conversation as soon as we come back from this break. Welcome back to the Vantage Point. We're so glad you're joining us today. We're going to continue our conversation with Melissa Jude, and she's talking to us about the death of her son Chandler here in the city last June. But overall, just the way the system is working here in Indianapolis as well, because she's working to make sure that it's not just better for her family, but for everybody. And so one thing you said during the break is, I know you were saying you would connect her to the police chief, but how did the system respond? The mayor's office, the police chief, what role did they play?
Well, the frustration with not being able to reach my son's detective, or waiting on a call back, or just even the laws that they tell us that reasons why they can't make arrests, or, question people, stuff that I have no idea. I wanted to better understand, and from my end, reach out to like the chief or the mayor to say, hey, I want you to understand on our end how this feels, because just like in leadership at my job, if we don't know that something's broken, we cannot fix it, and you never know, has anyone made them aware? So when I spoke with the mayor's office, the assistant that I talked to, I said I would really like to meet with him and the chief of police. And she said, well, I'll have to see what I can do about getting their schedules to work. And you're not the only parent that's calling here. And I said, well, that's even more reason to want to speak with me. And, and to speak with these families so you understand it's not just what you hear on the news. This is real life. And please, somebody listen. Because with the other mothers that I've met and families, it's not like they want to beat up on the police. They want to really have a discussion as to why are our hands tied? Why is this like this? And what can we do to help make this better? That's the reason that I reached out. And just with that response, and then I never got a call back or an email back with any kind of schedule or, hey, the mayor and the chief don't want to talk to you. I mean, anything. It was just like that was the answer. And so I was like, no, I need to try to get in to speak with someone here in charge so they understand how it feels on our end. And so since I didn't get anywhere is what prompted me to plan that protest for parents of homicide victims. It wasn't there to trash or tear up or beat anybody down. None of this is.
Exactly.
It's just about what can we help you guys understand on our end how it feels to make your process or procedure better. Across the board, from detectives reaching out. I mean, do we understand they're busy? Yeah, because the national average, they should have 4 to 5 cases, and our detectives here have 11 to 13 cases because of the homicide rate is so high. With really, I guess, not a whole lot of funding to hire more.
Right.
And that's a problem to me because it's like, how many lives is it worth? And how many children is it worth to keep losing before we do something? And at least once it's done, try to make it better for the families. Even their program that they have called Victims Assistance. I had never even heard of Victims Assistance until probably 7 months into this. Somebody said, well, has Victims Assistance reached out to you? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. What is victims assistance? And they said, well, after a homicide, there are folks that work for victims assistance that reach out to the families. And I'm like, no, I've never heard of them. So again, I started asking 60 other families, have you guys heard from them? No, what's that? So then I'm like, this was people mostly from last year. And I'm like, so if they're supposed to be reaching out and there is federal funding for this program, what is happening? Who are these people? I would like to know. And that is, again, part of the protest because again, it's not just me. Where you guys should be reaching out to these people, finding out what can you do. So like with my job, I do work for Community Health Network, and immediately they stepped in to get me some therapy. And then they got our counseling sessions, then they started involving my younger son and got us to a place, Brooks Place, that does do counseling for families that they've lost people, but there is a grant that is covers our therapy and other families that's covered by the Indiana Department of Criminal Justice. They helped me with that. So because all of these other people hadn't heard about this, it's like I've become this face. Melissa, I'm struggling. my kids are struggling. And I've started getting people signed up for Brooks Place, walking them through how they fill out the application themselves. You know, if I can help somebody else that, you know, instead of relying on another department that obviously other people haven't heard from, that's what I'll do, you know, and it's been almost like a volunteer, another full-time job for me. But it's that important because the therapy is important for these families. And to help these younger siblings that are struggling, my goodness. I mean, there's siblings that themselves are wanting to commit suicide because there's not a lot of resources for this. And on top of that, it's a vicious cycle, right?
Yep.
These young kids are vulnerable.
Yep.
So that's, you know, another avenue that it's like, what can we do to help these kids?
So in a perfect world, of course, we wouldn't even be having these conversations.
Absolutely.
But what does better look like?
Better to me, I mean, ultimately, I would love for young people to not kill each other.
Right,
You know,
right,
I mean, I
right.
would love, you know, and what I preach to the young people is accountability. That one word, teaching them how to be accountable for one another. I always say we have too many RIP and free so-and-sos and not enough don't do it, bros.
Right, right. I like
You
that,
know,
yeah.
and it's that accountability of one another. I would like to see young people, of course, help each other. But if you do enter this devastation of your kid being murdered or a family member, is what I would like to see is, first of all, if you reach out to your detective, I mean, you may not get a response right away because they're busy. But some people waiting 3 months for a phone call back or several weeks, you know, like I explained to the captain, if you were calling me at work about your loved one with cancer and I didn't call you back for
Right.
3 weeks, I would expect you actually to be in the office of my
Absolutely.
leadership
Absolutely.
complaining on me because that's not okay. Victims assistance is what I would love to see for them, is that they get involved immediately, almost like an intake coordinator. Get the information on the site or right after the homicide. Immediately start helping them sign up for resources or therapy, because there is funds out there that can help with funeral expenses, and not everyone has life insurance for their kids. So just reaching out and getting involved right away, taking that family or that parent by the hand and saying, I got you. I will intake all of your information and I'm going to see what works best for you, instead of trying to deal with all of this on your own after such a tragedy of losing your child or a loved one. It's hard.
Yeah.
I think I am amazed to hear some of the issues that are still being had. My biological father is one of Hallville's unsolved crimes from 1998. And what I remember about that, the joke that me and my sibling made, our siblings, was nobody reached out but the media, you know. And I applaud you in the stance that you're taking, Melissa, and how you are fighting for your son. At that time, I didn't want to talk to the media. You know, I don't know who killed my father. I don't know what's associated. You know, details come up, but not details that I heard from a police detective. I heard details from other people in the streets that ran with him. And so I'm amazed that many years later, there still sounds like the same issues, you know, where the media reaches out, but not the people that have answers. Or at least if you don't have an answer, reach out to me out of compassion. Hey, we don't know who, what, when, or where, because I think you go from watching the story on the news to going back home and having to process that yourself. So, you know, I'm amazed that that's still the scenario, but I do appreciate you, because I know there has to be a fight behind the scenes, even though you're advocating out front. So, you know, always gonna be in my prayers.
Thank you.
But I appreciate the fight that you're pushing through.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not about me. It's what can I do to help
Somebody else.
even other people, right? Even if I never see justice in my son's case, at least I've done something to try to help make the entire situation better for other families or more families to come. I mean, which I hate to say that, because I don't want any other parents to
Right.
be in these shoes. But for a lot of people, this is just another news story, and it's more than that to me.
How can people, because we only have a couple minutes left, how can people, because your organization is How Tired Are You?
Yes.
And some of this stuff you're saying, you just don't know till you're in it. How do we help? Where do we go?
Well, with my organization, How Tired Are You? We're trying to have programs for kids to give them something to do, something positive, help mentoring. And it's not just for kids. It's like sometimes people's parents and families, they need help, so we can get back to even some better parenting, the whole village concept. But just don't give up on our young people, because I really do think that there is possibility for change. Because what they tell us is that our generation has failed them. And so I always apologize to these young adults for that I'm sorry that they feel like we've given up on them. And, just reaching out. If you know someone that's, been involved with a homicide or suffering, be there for them and just don't give up helping them fight and be a ear.
I cannot tell you how I feel exactly about this. I'm learning a lot. I'm kind of angry, not with the individual, and I appreciate that you made it not about. Right. It's not about any one person.
Yeah.
It's a system we have to fight together.
Yeah.
I feel humbled that you're here.
And that's what I told him at that protest. Listen, we even brought you guys breakfast. We brought you Subway sandwiches because we just want you to talk to us. We're not here to tear up your stuff or tear you down. My goodness, if you guys saw my son's detective and how he looks half of the time, he looks exhausted all of the time. And he has told me that in his 27 years of being a homicide detective that this is the worst he's ever seen it. And I'm like, we don't want to beat up on you guys. We want to talk.
And I think everybody is tired, and I know they're cueing me to wrap it up. I think everybody is tired, but we need to know what to do, and I appreciate you pointing us in the direction.
Yeah.
And I pray this has been a blessing to somebody, and we're praying for your families that are going through this. And I don't know that you ever just stop going through it, but we're praying for you as you live and go forward, and I appreciate that you're using it to do something better.
Yep.
Join us on the Vantage Point next week.